Hello and welcome to Becoming Real, a world created by me, Elsbeth Hoefkens. This virtual experience is part of my artistic research into digital technology in theater. Alongside writing an essay, I explored this topic by attending over 30 live performances and engaging in conversations with a wide range of inspiring theater professionals. As a dramaturg and theater maker, I've been curious about how technology can shape what we see, feel, and believe on stage. What you're about to experience is a glimpse into that journey, a reflection of my insights, questions, and artistic vision. Some quick instructions. You can move using the arrow keys on your keyboard and your mouse. To jump, press the spacebar. As you move forward, you will eventually come across two arrows pointing in opposite directions. That's your moment to choose your path. Follow whichever direction feels right and enjoy the journey. Can you remember a moment when a robot appeared on stage and suddenly everyone's eyes were fixed on it? Or maybe it was an avatar or an impressive interactive projection. There is this kind of electricity in the air, a sense of what is it going to do next? As puppeteer and director Iris Meinhardt mentioned, digital technology is like a dog on stage. Everyone watches it, curious, waiting to see what it is capable of. Just like the performance Replica, a performance made by Meinhardt and Kraus, where a humanoid robot and a digital avatar completely shifted the focus, drawing the audience into their uncanny presence. This heightened attention on technology often means that the form, the technology itself, becomes the content. We're not just watching a performance, we're watching how it's made and what makes it possible. And that focus becomes part of the story. A powerful example of this is the performance Gier, directed by Christopher Ruping. And in this piece, the live video setup is fully visible. Cameras, projections, the whole filming process happens right before your eyes. And it invites us to think about power, vulnerability, presence, mediation, and the simple but complex act of looking. Another example is the performance Ever Given by Helgard Haug from Rimini Protokoll. Here, a performer appears virtually, so not in person, but through a small screen mounted on a mobile tripod. As mentioned in the performance, it's a solution to a scheduling conflict. She just couldn't be there live. But the result? It becomes something more. Her absence, or rather her virtual presence, shifts the meaning of her story entirely. Again, the form is the content. It's the dog on stage, the thing we cannot look away from. Whatever your reason might be for using technology in performances, whether it's to expand time and space, generate new images and worlds, or explore new ways of storytelling, I'd like to offer a hopefully helpful and inspiring approach. A double materiality approach to technology. What does that mean? Well, it means, as director Tobias Klett highlighted, bringing the technology into your rehearsal space. Not just as a tool, but as a partner. Asking, what does this technology mean? What can it do? And what does it provoke in an audience? And perhaps most importantly, being open to the unexpected. And to be clear, this is of course not a new idea. Many artists are already working in this way. But what I'm proposing is a more conscious separation. To see technology both as an object, something physical with its own material presence, and as a medium, something that carries meaning, images, and interaction. By teasing apart these layers, new possibilities emerge. It allows for a more intentional interplay between form and function. It can create tension, highlight meaning, or open up space to question how technology shapes perception and experience. Let me start with a small confession. I was attending the Transmediaal Festival, a yearly gathering for art and digital culture in Berlin. And at one point between lectures, I found myself inside a small cabin. It reminded me of an old telephone booth, closed off and intimate. I was participating in A Chorus of Tongues, an audio installation presented by Haus der Kultur der Welt. The idea was simple. You picked up a phone, one of those with a rotary dial, the kind with numbers in a circle that you have to turn. And through it, you could access poems in different languages, each voice belonging to a different author. Beautiful, right? There was just one problem. I had no idea how to use the phone. So there I was, standing in this thoughtful, poetic space, secretly Googling how to use old phone with circle numbers, making me feel both very young and strangely old at the same time. The point is, technological literacy varies a lot. So, when working with technology in performances, we have to ask ourselves, how do we create a dramaturgy for digital technology? One that says, come on in, gives a gentle nudge in the right direction, and then lets the audience roam freely, curious, confused, and amazed. 33 performances in 8 different theaters from 27 different makers, 26 with some form of digital technology, none of them really audience interactive, 21 of which used video projections, 16 of them live recorded video, the others pre-recorded. 6 of them projected on a white back wall, 3 on hanging white cloths, either whole or strips, 6 on mostly white pieces of decor, 1 on a translucent canvas, 3 on white projection screens, 1 on a huge mirror, 1 on an image of a VIP room in a football stadium, 2 also in the auditorium, and 10 with visible filming devices. 2 live played games, 82 other digital elements, 1 robot vacuum cleaner, 4 mobile phones, 8 screens, 3 very old TVs, 1 scene written by ChatGPT, at least as far as I know, 61 Bluetooth speakers, 2 laptops, 1 sound looping station, and 1 totally virtual performer. I've always been fascinated by how things come into being, and most of all, how we come into being. How we think, feel, and form opinions, how identities take shape, and how our brains and bodies work together, and how we're all in ways seen and unseen connected. I'm drawn to the construction of things, to what shapes us, what influences us, how consciousness is created, how we carry knowledge, emotions, and trauma in our bodies. Why do I believe something different than my neighbor? What shaped the way I look at the world, the way I experience life? How is a worldview built? And how does that affect the way we see and treat each other? And then there's technology. How does that shape perception? How is it constructed? How is something like an algorithm formed? Or how arrives a tool like ChatGPT at an answer? How does it influence the way we move through the world? Often more than we realize or want to admit. And theater allows us to not only explore perception, but also to manipulate it, question it, and reveal it. And that's also where my fascination for digital technology enters. Because just like theater, technology holds the power to reshape what we see, what we feel, and how we understand the world around us. So for me, the interest lies right there in using technology not just as a tool, but as a lens, a way to hold up a mirror, to help us become aware of the way we look, and maybe even shift what we see. What is the color of Berlin's winter? What is the color of Berlin's winter sunlight? 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 Digital is dead. That was the name, both with a question and exclamation mark, of the event organized by performance group Out of the Box and the Lab for Digitality at the Ernst Busch University. And the mood was clear. The pandemic-driven hype around digital theater is over. And with it, much of the funding. My own research reflects that shift too. Out of the 27 performances, 21 used video projections, mostly in large institutional theaters. So, not much experimental work with digital tech. But, as dramaturg and artist Sarah Boozer points out, maybe that's not such a bad thing. Now, only the people who truly want to work with it do. And those who do use more advanced technology are often in the vrije zone, as also experienced by visual artist and video designer Lieve van der Schave. And that's where I found the most playful, radical experiments with technology. But they're not so easy to find, especially if you're new in the city. And these performances don't always appear in big festivals or glossy flyers. You often find them through other artists and conversations. That said, experimenting with technology comes with its own set of challenges. You need time and money. The tools are expensive, fragile, often glitchy. You need to learn how to use them, mostly through YouTube tutorials. Or bring in an expert, but even then, you still need to understand the basics. And these challenges also reflect deeper structures in the theater landscape. Germany's system, with the Stadttheater on one side and the Freie Szene on the other, offers different opportunities but also different limits. The larger state-funded theaters provide a more stable foundation and ample resources for experimentation. But they often come with traditional architecture and more fixed, less interactive audience. On the other hand, the Freie Szene offers more creative freedom, allowing for riskier, more experimental work. However, it faces the challenge of limited funding and smaller, less stable venues. In comparison to the Netherlands, where I come from, as scenographer Ariana Trumper noted, the Netherlands has a very different setup. Fewer production houses, more traveling companies, and venues that are better suited to smaller, experimental collectives. And that structural flexibility makes more space for risks and for playful research. Isn't it comfortable to recognize something? To understand it and to say, I know you. You feel like a good old friend, one that I already know since primary school. How do I want to use technology in theater? Not just as a tool or a trick, but as a way to reveal how things are made, how meaning is constructed, how something becomes what it is. To slow things down, to zoom in, to invite reflection on what we think we know, and maybe even shift it. To question what feels true, reframe the familiar, and open space for nuance. Because sometimes it's not about confirming what we believe, but about unlearning, reconsidering, and looking again. And there's something else too. Technology isn't neutral. It shapes us just as much as we shape it. So, using it on stage also means asking, what is it doing in our lives? How is it connecting or disconnecting us? What data lies behind what we see? What are the systems underneath the images? And what does it cost, socially, ethically, environmentally? As scenographer Leonie Wolf points out, it's hard to fully measure the broader consequences of using technology. Theater, I believe, can be a space to hold all of that, to play with it, question it, and imagine what else it could be. zooming in and out, to tilt your head and wondering, like really wondering, do I truly know you? So, why use technology in theater? A question that already surfaced during my very first conversation with dramaturg and artistic director of the Schaubude, Tim Zandweg. Well, because it allows us to stretch time and space, to generate images, build new worlds, invent new narratives, and create immersive or interactive forms of storytelling. Or how sonographer Isabel Robson mentions it transports people. And it also helps to visualize the imaginary, opening up new ways of seeing, feeling, and understanding, and to engage with the world around us. And in doing so, it connects deeply with what theater has always done: question reality, shift perspectives, and maybe even for a moment spark transformation. Let's talk about the power of visualizing the imaginary. How the imaginary, when brought to life, can expand our reality, change the way we see and feel, and even alter the world around us. Take Betty Crocker, for example. In 1921, General Mills, an American company, created a fictional character, a friendly, knowledgeable housewife designed to promote their products, especially cake mixes and baking goods. Although Betty Crocker has never existed as a real person, people began to trust her recipes, write her letters, and invite her into their kitchens. What began as an imaginary marketing character slowly took on a life of its own, becoming an icon in American culture. The boundary between fiction and reality blurred. The fiction ends up building reality. And this is the power of visualizing the imaginary, to create something that might not be real, but is powerful enough to shift our perceptions, influencing how we think, how we engage, and ultimately how we experience the world. So, if the imaginary holds that kind of power, what do we want to imagine? So, where the other reason is about creation, this one is about reflection. Because theater doesn't just use technology, it also offers a space to question it, to explore how it works, how it shapes us, and how our physical and digital lives are constantly overlapping. Just think of how many performances begin with the phrase, "Please turn off your phones." Theater has the power to reflect on that relationship, to make us aware of the technologies we live with every day. And when we treat technology not just as a tool, but as a subject of inquiry, something shifts. It becomes a space for reflection and critique, and maybe even a space where we can reimagine what technology is and what it could become. Is there a color of Berlin's winter sunlight? What is the color of Berlin's winter sunlight? Is there a color of Berlin's winter? I want to explore how emerging technologies reshape our perception, how we understand the world and our place within it. To use the power of digital tools to visualize the imaginary. A power theater has always carried, but one that technology can extend, amplify, and make strangely real. To ask, what new realities can the virtual bring into being? What perspectives can it unlock? How can it help us to rethink what we take for granted? I want to build spaces that hold both critical reflection and wonder, worlds that invite connection, but also allow for friction, confusion, and discomfort. Glittering fairy tales with sharp edges, absurd, humorous, even disruptive moments that ask the big, uncomfortable questions. Because when we step into these new, strange worlds, we might just return to our own a little differently, with new eyes, new questions, and a deeper sense of how technology shapes us, and how we might shape it back. Which dog do you choose? I want to explore how emerging technologies reshape our perception, how we understand the world, and what about the audience? Are they even into digital technology? Well, which audience are we talking about? Maybe technology can open the doors to new audiences, more diverse, unexpected, curious. Audience who might not step into a red plush theater seat, but will step into a game. Take Two Girls One Comp, who created Dancing Plug, an adaptation within the world of GTA. By using a downloadable mod, they stage a theatrical intervention. Pressing the H key causes every male player to break into feverish dance. A choreography of disruption hidden in a plain sight. Or Mini Mini Golf Golf, an experimental storytelling game by artist Friedrich Kiesche, where film, theater, and game mechanics blend into something playful, poetic, and strange. And then there is Fantasia Malware, an experimental video game label where story and gameplay unfold together. The experience becomes the narrative. They perform games live, drawing the audience into a role, inviting them into a world that is constantly unfolding. A form of fragmented storytelling, where meaning isn't delivered but assembled. And these are just glimpses of how digital theater blurs boundaries, expands forms, and reaches people outside the usual theater bubble. And of course, not everyone is eager. Some might resist, and some love it. Some are bored by it, and some are, like you maybe, interested, hesitant, or somewhere in between. But still, I see digital technology as a chance, a bridge connecting the theater to the world beyond its walls. Like in the performance News from Beyond by Gob Squad, where the audience members listen to voice memos that are recorded just minutes earlier outside on the streets. Traces of real conversations sent from one world into another through a phone. And as performer Sharon Smith from Gob Squad puts it, it's about connecting with the audience. Like in Gob Squad's Kitchen, a reenactment of Warhol's films, recreated with the help of the audience. And the result? A live process that demands improvisation, openness, and a willingness to co-create, where a single line, "That gives me something to think about," said to a spectator on stage, becomes a cue for something new to begin. And that's what stays with me. That question of who we're really speaking to and with. Because in the end, whether we use digital technology or not, the most urgent question is, how do we reach beyond the familiar faces in the dark? That gives me too something to think about. Thank you for stepping into this virtual world. And whether you've just begun or reached the very end of this experience, I want to take a moment to thank those who supported and inspired me throughout this research. To everyone I spoke with and helped me writing my essay, thank you for welcoming me into your practices, your thoughts, and for generously sharing your time and perspectives. Thank you, Tim Zandweg, Sarah Boeze, Friedrich Kieschner, Isabel Robson, Anna Louisekis, Helene Kummer, Iris Meinhardt, Tobias Klet, Sharon Smith from Gob Squad, Lieve van der Schave, Leonie Wolf, Fantasia Malwer, Ariane Tromper, Christiane Hutter, Hanna Perner-Wilson, Helga Haug from Rimini Protokoll, Alexandra Drakulaki, and Sylvie Levens. And a special thanks to Culture Moves Europe for funding this research, to the Ernst Busch University of Theater Arts in Berlin for warmly hosting me throughout this process, and to all the staff, even those I only briefly crossed paths with. Thank you for making me feel so welcome. And finally, a big thank you to Gillian Jungel, who made this entire research journey possible by taking the time to read my plans, connecting me with inspiring artists, offering support whenever needed, and for the thoughtful, inspiring conversations along the way. Thank you.